Hey ladies and gentlemen, here we have Chris Lovell with his new art piece.
Hey Phil, how are you?
I'm not too bad, how are you?
I'm really good actually. I've just finished this new art piece.
Cool.
If you want to take a closer look at it.
Yeah, how long did that take?
Probably about a day to be honest. Best part of a day, maybe less. Pencils, inks and a bit of white acrylic to bring out the highlights in it.
Nice.
I thought you'd like it. It's pretty dark.
And this is your latest t-shirt design?
Not exactly. This was just a bit of fun really, but it's ended up being a t-shirt design for a band called Caliban.
Oh.
Yeah.
And have you made a time-lapse video to go with this?
Oh yes. Okay, before I scanned the image in, I thought I'd spend a few moments showing you the details of the camera. So here you can see pencil, and I've gone over certain areas with black ink and black paint, and for the highlights a little bit of white acrylic. There's even bits of toothbrush splatter there, which is always handy, and a tiny bit of black car spray at the bottom. To my right hand side I have Philip.
Hello.
Philip's going to be here to sort of take the role as being the noob, so he can be asking me the questions that maybe some of you viewing this will want to know, because I've always found it very hard to talk about what I do and how I do it, so it might be a bit more easier for me to sort of bounce off Phil and him to ask me questions, because I tend to ramble, and I've always found it hard to talk about my own work. I'm rambling now, aren't I?
You are a bit.
Okay, so here we are. There we go. Anything?
So what's what kind of paper are you using?
This paper was actually a really bad choice. It was a piece of A3 I found, but it's got a glossy finish, so it was awful for the pencils. And that's one of the main reasons I added the black paint and ink.
Do you need a more porous kind of paper?
Yeah, any sort of paper with a slight texture on it, really. It makes it easier to shade and stuff, so like the really soft pencils just barely came out at all. Actually, hard pencils, and this was the soft ones of the really dark ones, but the 4H's and stuff like that are pretty useless. These are the fine liners I like to use, the old Faber-Castell. And this is the ink I like to use as well. Use these for airbrushes and things like that. So they're great to mix with acrylics, I find, because I just love the way they go onto paper and canvas. Very nice. So here we go into the time-lapse video. Ooh, dramatic. Okay. Right, scanning time. So I scanned the image in 2 different layers, put it together on Photoshop. I've got an A4 scanner, so Photoshop's really handy for lining these things together. If you look at the right little box, the layer box, that's got about 4 different layers at the moment of the image, so I can adjust opacities, darknesses, and always double check if I've made improvements or stuff like that. I mean, what I've done here, because I've drawn the whole image in pencil, the shading's all done, so it's a bit different to how I do a digital painting where I'm painting the shading on. So essentially what I'll do in a nutshell is have my image as it is normally, and underneath have a layer of the image which I've just darkened considerably, and what I'll do then on the layer above is just erase through to bring out the tones. So it's kind of like using the rubber to make the lines of the darkness as opposed to the paintbrush or a pencil. So it's a bit of a backwards way of working, but it works perfectly for me with this sort of thing. So you can see here I'm just slightly bringing in some colour tones. Good tip is, because this is all in pencil, it's essentially like a grayscale image, so everything is pretty much black and white at the moment. So the beauty of that is you can start adjusting colours, and straight away, if you start with colour straight away, you can sometimes confuse yourself and spend a lot more time oohing and ahhing over the general image. So what I've got here is a nice almost blank canvas colour wise to start with. So here you can see I'm just adjusting different tones. So you can see where I'm erasing through around the cheeks and the hair and the horn. So all I'm doing is erasing through to a darker version of the image below. So it's a really nice way for me just to pick out the little darker areas and start bringing out the depth. Is that kind of making sense?
Yeah.
There we are. So I'm touching those worms at the moment. So there's certain areas, the key areas are like the worms and the darker shadows around his face. They're the sort of areas to build on. And I find it just snowballs from there. I got no set idea in my mind at the moment of how I want this to look. Or
You seem to be adding the depth to it here.
yeah. Again, I work very erratically. I don't have a set process. I just do what I feel looks right at the time. I'll focus on a certain area. So at the moment, the worms were probably going to be the most dynamic part of the image because they were going to have the shine on them, the slimy look and stuff like that. So you see here, the constant flashing is just me checking different layers and opacities, and so there's 4 versions. So the bottom layer there, you can see in the layer box, will be the first one. See, I've just flattened it now back down to 1. Now I'm just bringing in some textures now to bring over the top. So this is just an old grungy texture I found, which looks nice. But it works nicely for these sort of things. It's got sort of an old parchment look to it. So layered that over the top, erased him through so you can see him clearly. That's me checking my Facebook. Again, these little layers I'm using here are simple grungy things, like old bricks I photographed and taken the
so you've actually created these yourself?
Yeah. I mean, you can just take a photo of anything. I mean, you can go on Google, you can find these sort of things. But what I've done, I've just selected like the darker parts of a photo, say some concrete. What's the word? Copied and pasted what I've selected, and then you've got like a floating layer you can just drag onto stuff like this. So, for adding my work's very grungy and organic looking, so those sort of things really help, especially with an image like this. And it ties in with all the paint splatter I did with the tuff brush.
I was going to say that works really well.
So now I'm going back over some more little areas, bringing some more dark tones in around the base. So it's slowly coming together now, starting to look a bit more like it's got some depth. I was really liking how the skull was looking at the moment. It's got some nice bone tones going on there. With this sort of thing, it was all very subtle. I didn't want to have any bold colours. I wanted to have a washed out.
What was your inspiration for the original piece?
Just a vision in my head. Just
right.
pictured. I'm not too sure of what really. So I started drawing and it just came together. I always like the idea of ghouls and I don't know really.
Like fantasy creatures.
Yeah, just stuff. There's no right, no wrong. I mean, his proportions are all weird, but it doesn't matter because it's just a rotting, strange, demonic creature. But I wanted him to look almost like he could, like, be approachable in a weird way, or maybe he's just realised you're coming up behind him, or is he at the edge of a cliff looking over at some sort of, I don't know, barren wasteland. And the worms just, I don't know, it sounds a bit of a gross element, almost like he's climbing out of like some nest in the rocks or something like that. I like the idea of that.
I never noticed he hasn't got legs.
No, he's coming out like a hole in the ground kind of thing, or maybe he's materialising out of ooze. I don't know. Right, so what am I doing here? Yeah, I'm adding more layers. So these grungy layers, I've actually selected the darkest tones, like the dark, the black, the pencils, and I've got them as a layer above at the moment. So the top layer you can see on the right will be just basically the darkest parts of the image, so I can underneath that drag in different layers of colour and colour beneath, so I never go over the pencil and have to redraw what I've already done. So this is where these sort of things work beautifully, so I'm just erasing around there. Not being too strict with where I put the layers, I just drag them, think it works there, and start erasing them, soften them. There we go, I put some more grungy tones there.
It's just the whole process here from start to finish?
Colour-wise, yeah. So there's another darker one there, so I brought in a bit more colour onto his body. So I wanted to get a bit of a darker area underneath the spine. So this whole process took about 4 hours, believe it or not.
4 hours?
4 hours, yeah.
That's insane. That's quick.
It doesn't feel like it, because I go into a zone when I'm doing this sort of stuff. But what am I doing there? It's actually hard to see because it's going so fast. It's hard for me to even remember what I was actually doing at the time. But in a nutshell, just have your image, have a darker layer underneath and just start erasing through really softly. I use a small brush, and I'll have my opacity at maybe 20 at the most, and I'll just slowly erase through, almost like I'm shading. You just got to think of the rubber as acting like a pen in a sense, so you're adding those darker shades in areas. So it's a nice little bit of grungy texture added in here. I thought this gave a weird subconscious look of maybe some barbed wire fencing or just some old...
Yeah. That's a harshness.
Yeah, barren wasteland sort of look. Very rarely do I draw any slick, clean stuff. I like myself to look dark and gritty.
Yeah.
So this is where it starts coming together a bit more now. I've added a darker layer on top of everything now, and I'm erasing through again, so this is a much more clearer example of the process I was talking about. So it's a far more vivid, so straight away you can see that everything's starting to pop now.
Yeah.
So as I go through, I can pick out the highlights on the top of the horns there, teeth, a bit of light coming through on the shoulder. And basically all I want to do is focus on certain elements now to make them, look more strong. So little highlights around the edges on the worms. There we are. Some hair. You can see the little splatters of the... I find tuff brushes a really effective little way to add some grungy elements to like some traditional art. So you can see a little splatter on his hair and stuff like that. It's just me flicking white paint with a tuff brush. So don't throw your tuff brushes away. Right, so I'm adding...
use them after.
Yeah, so... There we are, so I'm adding some more soft highlights, picking out the different areas. I like that flashing, looks like it's lightning. There we are. So I'm bringing some more colour tones here. So if you look now, I've flattened the entire image, so now I'm just trying to settle on a certain colour. I quite like the blue tone, but it's amazing when you've spent a couple of hours working on something. Oh, here's the moon. You can sometimes you can just do a quick colour change and be, oh, that's amazing, but then it's only because you're seeing something with a fresh eye, but then you go back to the original and you realise, it was actually better before. So with the moon there, I just simply drew a circle, set it at a low opacity and just erased through it, so to make it quite subtle.
So just to go back again, you've got a layer without any of these alterations on it.
I did until I flattened the image. Once you flatten everything, you've just got the one piece there. But until I only do that when I'm happy with at a certain stage, So here I wasted about an hour on a tree, which I ended up scrapping. I just felt it just confused things too much, took away too much of the mood of the picture. It was kind of weird. I like the idea of having some branches going over the sun or moon, whatever you want it to be. But I don't know. I just felt it just closed the image too much.
I find it takes away from the foreground a little bit.
Yeah.
There it looks good, but add the...
So I wasted about an hour on this. So I was struggling. I wanted some music to play. I was looking for some New Model Army. My connection
the
would
name
work.
drop there.
Yeah. So what we're doing now? Yeah, just toying with this tree idea. Could have worked. Maybe if I wanted to spend more time on it, I could have
Is
done
that
that.
hand drawn on?
You basically I just painted directly onto the graphics tablet. Exactly the same as I would with a paintbrush in a way. Just obviously quicker access to colours. Right, and coming towards the end of it now. Yeah, so in the end I thought I'd move it over. It ended up becoming a very faint weed at the bottom in a second. There we are. There we go. So has this inspired you to do some artwork, Phil?
I think it has, actually.
Yes, good.
Inspired me to get a bit of software as well.
Yes. But yeah, the beauty, it still looks quite traditional at the end, colour-wise. This is what I would have done with inks and stuff like that, but I thought it'd be nice to actually have a go at making a time-lapse video. It's been quite tricky, it's been a bit of a learning curve, so apologies to anyone watching this who isn't impressed, but it's the best I could do for my first attempt. Here we are, so here's the final image.
Wow.
You can see the nice tonal qualities there. All very subtle.
Impressive.
Thank you, Phil. Remember, the actual image was A4, A3 in size. So, what a huge image. And there it is in all its glory. And join me on Facebook. Join us. Join me. Thanks for watching, guys. Like, subscribe, comment. You know what to do. Share it. All appreciated.